Narcissistic abuse is a horrendous form of psychological and emotional abuse, and sometimes it can be physical abuse also. By the time you've got to that point, there has been that many psychological abusive patterns of behaviour from a narcissist. We often don't even know who we are anymore. Narcissistic abuse can have so many effects, not only on your mental health, but also your physical health. I shall link the video up here for more information on physical health. Neuroscientists have discovered that narcissistic abuse or psychological abuse can have effects on how your brains work. So this video is going to look into more about how it affects our minds, how it affects our brains, and how this can affect our behaviour. Thank you very much to all the returning subscribers and your continued support. If you are new to the channel, I'm Elizabeth Shaw. This channel is all about the narcissistic personality disorder, to give you more understanding of the people you might be dealing with in your life, how to handle yourself around those people if you cannot go no contact, and different methods to find what helps you understand and overcome narcissistic abuse. If you do find the information helpful on the channel, please do subscribe. So this video is going to be about how long-term narcissist abuse can affect our minds and our brains, and how that then affects who we are as a person. In a narcissistic relationship and coming out of a narcissistic relationship, we can have so much brain fog. We can live in a state of hypervigilance. We can have fear, dread, anxiety, depression, CPTSD, physical health problems, fibromyalgia, even things down to eczema and Crohn's disease, migraines, MS, rheumatoid arthritis, loss of belongings, loss of family, loss of who we are as a person, loss of our belief systems, and so many more things. And with prolonged periods of psychological abuse, this can also affect our hippocampus within our own minds. Within our brain, our hippocampus can begin to shrink with the effects of the psychological manipulation. And this is due to the repeated trauma, the repeated injuries of the emotional abuse. The hippocampus is a paired structure within our brains. The hippocampus helps with our short-term memory. After we witness anything, our memories are usually stored or transferred. We process what we see, what we hear, what we learn, what we grow, and our brains process what we do with those memories. And our hippocampus is responsible for filtering those memories. Within a narcissistic relationship, due to all their gaslighting, due to all their manipulation, we often find ourselves living under constant stress. That constant stress releases chemicals such as cortisol, which does help us through temporary stressful situations. However, within a narcissistic relationship, it's usually long term, so we have a bigger release of that cortisol over a long period of time, which affects our physical health and affects our brains. When that cortisol is released, it can shrink our hippocampus. The longer you are around a psychological, emotional, physical abusive person, the more that hippocampus is going to shrink and lose its volume, lose its capacity. The longer you are with them, the more over time the hippocampus will deteriorate, which is why your feelings of confusion and abuse amnesia often progressively get worse throughout the relationship. No, not only is the narcissist gaslighting you into losing your memories and your own reality, your mind is slowly losing, your brain is slowly losing the capability to hold on to your memories, to hold on to your truth. So you become more and more confused of trying to remember, did that happen? I'm sure it happened, but I can't fully remember whether that happened. And they're telling me it didn't happen. So maybe it didn't happen. Maybe it was me, or was it me? And we lose touch of who we are as a person. We lose touch of our past. We lose touch of our reality, and the narcissist gains more control. Damage to the hippocampus can cause mental problems, and it also makes us more susceptible to the narcissist gaslighting. Long-term emotional abuse can also grow our amygdala, which is responsible for our emotions such as fear. So not only will a narcissist put us in a state of confusion and fear and anxiety, our amygdala has grown in size, which will heighten our sense of fear and anxiety. Part of a narcissist control is placing people into that state of fear. So they rule through love or through fear. People either admire them and do what the narcissist wants because they love them and believe them to be a genuine, decent person, or they fear what the narcissist will do to them if they step out of line. The more heightened our emotions come, not only because of what the narcissist is doing to us through their emotional abuse, but also the effects that emotional abuse is having on our brains, the more we start to live in a state of hypervigilance, the more anxiety we begin to suffer with. So as the amygdala grows, so does our state of fear. The more we are sent into the survival mechanism of fight, flight, freeze or fawn, which I shall also add up here. And being in fight, flight, freeze or fawn can also end up with us people pleasing and feeling like we are codependent because we've been trained to act in a certain way, which is why I will always say abuse is abuse. There is no excuse. Narcissist personality disorder is the reason behind their behaviour. It's not to excuse their behaviour, and you are not to blame. It has so many side effects on our mental and physical health that you are most often not even to blame for your reactions, although yes, you're responsible for who you are as a person. What the narcissist manipulation is doing to you psychologically and physically is often why you no longer even feel like the person you once were, because you're not the person you were. It's changed the way you think, it's changed the way you process memories, it's changed the way you process emotions. As our amygdala grows over time, it holds on to that fear more, and it holds on to those senses of things we things we smelt, things we saw, things we felt. So any painful experience that we've lived that has a specific smell to it, when we smell that same smell that we had when we lived the painful experience, it can trigger those anxieties within us. However, because our hippocampus and our memories have shrunk, we can't always recognise what the trigger is. So we can feel like we're overreacting over nothing when it's actually an event that happened in our past that we just can't remember to understand that trigger, to understand that pain. Our body thinks it's protecting us, when unfortunately it's then not protecting us, it's actually holding us back. EMDR treatment is usually very good for getting to, and they can be very painful, so it's finding the right EMDR therapist for you so that you can discover those memories and work through your anxieties at your own comfort level, at your own pace. It's also why it's a good idea to write down your anxiety attacks and the lead up events to that anxiety attack, so you can start to work on what your specific triggers are, so that then you can use the calming methods. It's okay having techniques to cope with anxiety, but we have to understand what's going to trigger that attack so we can calm ourselves before that attack comes on. There's many different techniques to regrow our hippocampus and regain our memories. There is many different techniques to shrink our amygdala and gain control over our emotions, which is why when people say, oh, get a hold of yourself, it wasn't that bad, it's very difficult because your brain is not working how their brain is working. So somebody on the outside looking into the situation that thinks, well, why don't you just do this? Because they haven't got those effects on their brains. They potentially could. However, because your brain has been affected, it takes time, it takes practice, it takes patience to recover from emotional abuse. You have suffered injuries, emotional injuries to your brain over a long period of time. So it takes time to heal those injuries, to move on, which is why we can seemingly believe we're doing so well, and then something can hit us out of nowhere and it can send us into that spiral of overthinking, ruminating. And we have to learn our own ways of shifting ourselves back out of that onto the track we want to live our lives now. Going no contact with a narcissist is always the best approach. If not, grey rock. No contact is the best because that gives us time to start to process our feelings again. When you're trying to work through processing your feelings, it's easy to say, just don't react to them. That's most of the advice that I give. Don't react to them. It's far easier to say that than do that, especially when our emotions are heightened. We are going to be more prone to reacting. So going no contact or limited contact gives us time to gather our own thoughts so that we can respond in a manner that we believe is acceptable, and no longer react to them in a way that we then feel guilty about and try and make it up to them for our reactions to their behaviour. If you're at the start, it is always wise to retreat, rethink, and only respond if you need to do so when they are coming at you, because by retreating it gives you time to think about things and trying not to overthink things. After a psychologically, emotionally, mentally abusive relationship, many people struggle with clouded thoughts, with a lack of concentration, anxiety, PTSD, CPTSD, puzzled, phobias, stress, panic attacks, ruminating due to the overactive amygdala heightening our fears and our underactive hippocampus no longer being able to process our memories. We can subconsciously protect ourselves by living in denial, by playing down the abuser's behaviour or mistreatment of us, and that's without their gaslighting. Denial is to escape those painful memories, the things that we don't want to admit to because it's going to cause us psychological pain. We can also think that we're imagining things. Again, the narcissist gaslighting, they will do their best to make us think that we're imagining things or that we're the ones that are going crazy. Most sufferers of this kind of abuse often think it wasn't that bad, and not only do the sufferers think it wasn't that bad, a narcissist will be telling them it's not that bad, and enablers will be telling them it's not that bad, which all leaves the sufferers of psychological abuse questioning themselves all the more. And yes, we do have to be responsible for our own behaviour, but we have to safely get away from those that are making us question things that we haven't even done. We can focus on the positive sides of the relationship a little too much and keep ourselves trapped there without realising, because we're trying to protect ourselves from the pain of the negative sides of the relationship. And a narcissist will be gaslighting with "remember when I." How can you, after all I've done for you, to make us feel guilty if we start to think for ourselves, to make us focus on those good times so that we forget the bad times or blame ourselves for the bad times? As narcissists are very good at exaggerating anything good they do, downplaying anything negative, or blame shifting anything negative that they've done onto us, and taking the credit for anything we've done well for themselves. With a narcissist projection, blame shifting, gaslighting, we are usually the ones that take responsibility for everything that goes wrong within that relationship, whether it's a parent, a friend, a boss, a child, a sibling, a partner, whoever the narcissist is. Due to their many psychological manipulation methods, we are the ones that usually take responsibility for everything that goes wrong, rather than accepting responsibility for the things that we do wrong or the mistakes that we make and passing responsibility back to the rightful owner for theirs. It's not our job to clean up after those who are unwilling to clean up after themselves. And with the effects it has on our mental and physical health, it's a process, it's a learning curve, it takes time, it takes understanding, and it takes compassion. And that compassion also has to come from yourself. You have to be able to forgive yourself for not seeing that you were trying to help those that were trying to destroy you. We often blame ourselves for our reactions, and a narcissist will set the environment so that we do react and so that we do blame ourselves, so that we don't focus on what they've done, so that we focus on what we've done. Because we are aware of our mistakes, because we are aware of our errors in judgment, we focus more on our negatives. We fear other people finding out about what we've done wrong, because it's not who we are as a person. We've reacted out of character due to their mind games. Our hippocampus needs to work correctly so that we can remember things, so that we can process things, so that we can learn, so that we can experience things, and so that we can hold on to those things within our own brains. The hippocampus is extremely vulnerable to prolonged emotional abuse. Often why people who had narcissistic parents end up with narcissistic parents. Not only do they accept behaviour as normal that they should never have accepted because they grew up with that behaviour, it's had massive implications on their brains, the way they think, the way they feel, the way they have gone into fight, flight, freeze and fawn, the way they try to please others in order to protect themselves, the way they downplay toxic behaviour rather than recognising, no, that's toxic, I don't want to be a part of that. Due to being raised by narcissistic parents, we will downplay other people's negative behaviour towards us, and that's even without the narcissist gaslighting of us. The very, very first way to help yourself is to leave the abuser. It's not easy. There is domestic violence centres around the world that will help you, that do understand what you've been through, and that will help you. The first step to recovery is leaving the abuser. If it's a parent, limiting your time around them. The second step is no contact, or limiting your time around them so you've got time to gather your thoughts and your feelings and understand again who you are as a person. And then things like meditation, yoga, mindfulness, exercise to help reduce the stress, to release those endorphins, to release the dopamine, to help you find the happier version of yourself. Not when you're doing mindfulness or meditation, not ruminating over the past or thinking, clearing your mind from the past and thinking of a happier future. EMDR treatment, as that is very helpful for discovering memories that we'd rather not remember. However, we need to remember so that we can learn our anxiety triggers and work through our anxiety. Sometimes the pain of stepping out of our comfort zone feels worse than the pain of staying in our comfort zone. However, staying in our comfort zone leaves us in that pain for many years, facing our fears, which is difficult when you have come out of this kind of relationship. Facing our fears in the present means that we will have worked through them so that they no longer affect us in our future. EFT techniques do help with calming anxiety. There's different essential oils that help with calming anxiety. Finding your sense of humour. Laughter can help you. Laughter is, as they say, one of the best medicines, and laughter can truly help you. Narcissistic abuse is far from funny, but if you can find your sense of humour, whatever that sense of humour is to you, it will help you grow and process. And lots of self-care, working on your inner voice. Most of the time, coming from these kinds of relationship, we begin to talk to ourselves how our abuser spoke to us, and we have to learn to shift that voice out of our own minds and find our own voice again, find our own truth again. If anyone has any advice on treatments or methods that help them recover, please do add it into the comments, because what works for one person doesn't always work for another. It's finding the method that helps you as a person recover. There is no time limit. Some people do it far quicker than others. Some people take far longer than others. It all depends on how long you've experienced this kind of abuse, what you have lived through, who you are as a person, your life experiences. Although the stories are very similar, we are all individuals who have lived individual lives. So it's about finding the method that works for you. So if you found something that works for you, please do add it in the comments, as you never know who that might work for, who that might help. And there's nothing wrong with trying things and thinking, it's not really for me. Sometimes we do have to give things a chance to see whether they work or not. And once we've given them a chance and realise they don't work, we then have to move on and find something that does. I shall add in the description the recommended reading, as there is a section in there to help with anxiety, and a section of products to help with anxiety, to help yoga, mindfulness, such things as that. I shall also add in the description the link for BetterHelp. I am currently full for one-to-one coaching, so I have partnered with those, and their sponsored link will be in the description. There is also an online course which is just a guide to help you recover from the trauma bond and anxiety. Thank you very much for listening, and go out there and create the day that you deserve, because you do deserve to have an incredible day. Bye.